You think guilt is a natural part of life? What if I told you it's just an illusion you've imposed on yourself? We all live trapped by our own weaknesses and fears, but it's time to change that. Every minute spent in self-punishment is a minute you lose your power. You don't have to suffer. It's time to break free from the chains holding you in that dark place. This video is based on Nietzsche's philosophy and will be interesting and useful for those who want to understand how to break free from inner chains and start living truly free. If you're ready to shatter myths and embrace your true power, stay with us. Well then, let's begin. You carry it like an invisible chain, heavier than iron, sharper than a blade. It tightens around your throat when you speak too freely, coils around your chest when you dare to breathe without permission. This is not justice. This is not morality. This is a weapon, placed in your hands by those who never wanted you to be free. Guilt. It is not born within you. It is planted. A parasite that feeds on your past, twisting your memories until they no longer belong to you but to the ones who would control you. Every moment of shame, every silent regret, they are bricks in a prison you were never meant to escape. And yet, here you are, clutching the bars as if they are the only thing keeping you from falling. You have been conditioned to believe that suffering is noble, that to punish yourself is to become pure. But what is purity if not the absence of life itself? What is virtue if it demands that you kneel before shadows? They have told you that guilt makes you good, that if you feel it long enough, deep enough, it will cleanse you. But has it? Or has it only made you afraid? Listen carefully. That voice whispering in your mind, replaying your mistakes, gnawing at your spirit, it is not your own. It is the echo of those who have convinced you that to exist is to owe, to breathe is to repent. But what if they are wrong? What if you do not have to kneel? What if you do not have to suffer? Break the chain. Step beyond the bars. See with your own eyes. Because the moment you recognize the prison, you have already taken your first step out of it. The burden placed upon you. Before you could walk, they had already decided where your feet would step. Before you could speak, they had already chosen the words you were allowed to say. And long before you ever felt the first sting of guilt, they had already built the altar upon which you would sacrifice your freedom. You were not born in chains, yet they draped them over you as if they were a birthright. They told you that to be good is to obey, to be loved is to repent, and to seek truth is to betray those who gave you life. They whispered into your mind before it had the strength to resist, weaving a morality designed not to elevate you, but to break you. Your family, the first architects of your conscience, wrapped guilt around your spirit like a protective shroud. Do not disappoint us, they said, their love held hostage by your submission. The fear of being cast out, of being less than worthy, became the unspoken law of your existence. And so you obeyed, not out of wisdom, but out of terror. Society, a faceless beast with 1,000 voices, carved deeper into your soul. It taught you that to stray from the path is to become unworthy, that your worth is measured by how much you conform, how well you carry the burdens assigned to you. The weight of expectation, the suffocating hand of judgment, it molds you not into who you are, but into what they need you to be. And then there is religion, the grandest illusion of them all. They tell you that you are born in sin, that your very existence is an offense, that suffering is the price of redemption. They offer you a life where every joy must be paid for with sorrow, where every pleasure is a debt owed to an unseen judge. They do not ask you to live, they demand that you kneel. But above all, there is power, the silent hand behind it all. Governments, leaders, systems, they do not seek your growth, only your obedience. A guilty man does not rebel. A guilty man does not question. A guilty man punishes himself so that no one else has to. They have no need for chains when they have already taught you to kneel. And so you stand at the crossroads of your own existence, weighed down by a burden that was never yours to carry. The question is not who placed it upon you. The question is, will you let them keep it there? Guilt as a tool of control. They do not need chains to bind you. They do not need whips to make you obey. A man who carries guilt is already enslaved. A mind burdened with shame does not rebel, does not question, does not rise. It folds in on itself, crushed under the weight of an invisible master. And that master? It is not fate, nor justice, nor morality. It is power, cold, calculating, and relentless in its hunger to rule you. They have made suffering a virtue because it serves them. They have made self-punishment a sacred duty because a man at war with himself will never be at war with them. Guilt is the perfect weapon, one that does not wound the flesh but corrodes the soul. It is a leash you cannot see, a prison without walls, a sentence that requires no executioner because you are both prisoner and guard, victim and oppressor. Who profits from your torment? The ones who whisper that your nature is sinful, that your desires are impure, that your very existence is a debt to be repaid. They promise redemption, but only if you kneel. They demand purity, but only through suffering. They sell you the poison and then the cure, an endless cycle in which you are forever unworthy, forever atoning, forever small. Guilt turns you against yourself. It teaches you to doubt your own instincts, to shrink in the face of your own desires, to seek permission for every breath. And in that weakness, they find their strength. A man who is crushed by guilt seeks forgiveness, seeks approval, seeks someone to tell him that he is good again. And so he submits to the family that controls him, to the society that molds him, to the authorities that dictate his worth. But what if you refused? What if you stripped their weapon from their hands and shattered it against the ground? What if you stood, not in repentance, but in defiance? The moment you stop believing in your own guilt is the moment you become dangerous. Because a man without guilt cannot be controlled. A man without guilt does not bow. A man without guilt is free. And freedom is the one thing they never wanted you to have. The judge within you. There is a voice inside your mind. It speaks in the dead of night when the world is silent. It whispers when you stand at the edge of joy, pulling you back before you dare to leap. It reminds you of your failures, your flaws, your regrets, as if reciting the sacred texts of your own unworthiness. This voice, this judge, wears the robes of authority, but have you ever questioned who placed it upon the throne? This judge is no stranger. It has lived inside you for as long as you can remember, its gavel striking with the weight of every disappointed glance, every shamed silence, every punishment inflicted upon you by those who claim to love you. It was built from the voices of others, the parent who told you to be better, the teacher who scolded you, the priest who warned of eternal fire. Their voices have faded, but their echoes remain, and now they speak as if they are your own. You obey this judge without question. You cower before its verdicts, believing them to be law. It tells you that you are not enough, that you must pay for your mistakes, that redemption lies in suffering. And so you become both prisoner and executioner, dragging yourself through trials that never end, sentencing yourself to guilt that has no absolution. But what if this judge is nothing more than a fraud? What if its wisdom is borrowed, its authority stolen? What if you stood before it, not as the accused, but as the ruler of your own mind? What if you reached for its mask and tore it away, only to find nothing behind it? This is the truth they never wanted you to see. There is no judge but the one you allow to judge you. No divine force, no sacred law, no eternal decree, only a voice you have mistaken for justice. And if that voice is not your own, why should it hold power over you? Take off its robe, burn its gavel, dismantle its court. Let its decrees turn to dust. For the moment you recognize this judge as an impostor, you are already free from its rule. And a free man does not ask permission to live. You were taught to suffer. You did not enter this world with guilt wrapped around your soul. You did not come screaming from the womb burdened with shame. You were born wild, untamed, free. A child does not ask if he deserves joy. He reaches for it with both hands. A child does not kneel before invisible judges. He runs, he laughs, he conquers. He does not question his right to exist. And yet, here you are, bound by chains you did not forge, carrying a weight that is not your own. You have been taught that suffering is noble, that pain purifies, that guilt makes you worthy. But worthy of what? Whose approval? Whose God? Whose kingdom profits from your self-inflicted wounds? They began their lessons early. Do not be selfish. Do not speak too loudly. Do not take what is not offered. Every word was a brick in the walls of your prison. They taught you to apologize for your desires, to seek permission before you existed too much. When you cried, they told you to be strong. When you disobeyed, they told you to be ashamed. When you failed, they told you to repent. They did not teach you to grow, they taught you to bow. And now, you flinch before your own reflection. You silence your own hunger. You hesitate before joy, fearing that it must be earned. But earned from whom? From the same ones who told you that suffering was a virtue? From the same voices that made you doubt your own worth? No, enough. There is no redemption in pain. There is no wisdom in self-sacrifice when the altar is built by those who would see you kneel. You were not born to suffer. You were not born to repent. You were born to be. So unlearn their lessons. Tear the pages from the book they wrote for you. Walk into the fire of your own existence and burn away the lies they etched into your skin. Because the only sin, the only real sin, is to live a life that was never your own. Forgive yourself, the first step to freedom. For how long will you carry this weight? How many nights will you let the past gnaw at your mind? How many mornings will you wake with the taste of old regrets on your tongue? You wear your mistakes like shackles, dragging them through every moment of your existence, as if suffering long enough will rewrite what has already been written. But suffering does not undo the past. It only chains you to it. You have been taught that forgiveness must be earned, that there is a price to be paid, a debt to be settled, an invisible judge whose approval you must seek before you are allowed to breathe freely again. But who is this judge? Who holds the keys to your prison? Only you. They told you that redemption comes from outside, that absolution must be granted by another. But if that were true, why does their forgiveness never silence the voice inside you? Why does their mercy never release your soul? Because the only forgiveness that matters is your own. You must step into the fire of your own conscience and face yourself, not as a criminal before a court, but as a warrior standing before the battlefield of his past. You are not here to beg for mercy. You are here to claim your right to live without chains. Forgiveness is not about erasing what has been done. It is about refusing to let the past own you. It is about looking at your reflection and saying, I am no longer my mistakes. I am no longer my regrets. I am no longer bound to the man I was yesterday. Let go. Not because they tell you to. Not because time will heal all wounds. It won't. But because you refuse to live one more day in servitude to a past that cannot be changed. Because you deserve to step forward unburdened, to build, to create, to become. Forgive yourself. Because no one else can do it for you. Because freedom does not wait for permission. Stop living in the past. The past is a graveyard, and yet you keep returning to it, digging up the bones of old mistakes, breathing life into ghosts that should have long turned to dust. You walk through ruins that no longer belong to you, tracing the outlines of regrets like a worshiper at a broken altar. But tell me, who told you that the road leads backward? Who convinced you that what is dead must be carried forward? Guilt is a chain forged from yesterday, rusted but unbreakable, until you decide otherwise. It whispers that what has been done will always define you, that your footsteps are etched in stone, that the echoes of your past will forever drown out the voice of who you could become. But this is a lie, a trick played by a mind that does not yet know it is free. You are not the same person who made those mistakes. The man who failed, who stumbled, who bled in the name of his own ignorance, he no longer exists. His suffering taught you, his errors shaped you, his fall became the foundation upon which you now stand. To chain yourself to his corpse is madness. He was not meant to walk beside you. He was meant to be buried. Let go. Not because forgetting is easy, not because the past deserves to be erased, but because you deserve to live unshackled. What has been cannot be undone. What is gone will not return. The road does not curve backward. It stretches forward into the unknown, untamed, waiting for the one who has the courage to walk it. And so you must choose, remain a prisoner of yesterday or step forward and claim what has always been yours, the right to become something more. Guilt, weakness, or strength. They told you that guilt is a burden, that it weighs you down, that it must be carried like a cross through the deserts of your existence. And yet, here you stand, alive, burning, hungry. If guilt were only a chain, would you not have been broken by now? If guilt were only poison, would you not have already withered? Then what is this force that stirs in you, this fire that refuses to die? Guilt is not the enemy. It is raw energy, unshaped, untamed. In the hands of a coward, it becomes weakness, an excuse to kneel, to drown in self-pity, to surrender to the past like a slave who does not know he is free. But in the hands of the one who dares, guilt is fire. It is fuel. It is the hammer that forges the man who is too afraid to be born. Regret is only useless when it paralyzes. But you are not here to crawl. You are here to transform. If your past burns you, let it burn away the old self. If your mistakes haunt you, let them teach you how to rise. A man who carries guilt without using it is like a blacksmith who sits beside his fire, weeping that it is too hot to touch. But fire does not exist to be feared. It exists to create. Do not seek to erase your guilt. Consume it. Let it feed your hunger to become more than you were. Let it remind you that you have work to do, battles to fight, mountains to crush beneath your feet. The past is not a prison if you have the will to turn it into a forge. Weakness or strength? The answer is not written in guilt itself. It is written in what you do with it. And the only man who is truly lost is the one who lets his fire die before he has learned to wield it. Fear and guilt, the bandit twins. Fear and guilt are not merely two separate forces. They are not distant cousins. No, they are twin bandits, born of the same dark mother, born to steal from you everything that is yours. They are inseparable, two sides of the same coin, both working in unison to cripple you, to keep you caged. They whisper in your ear, singing the same song of inadequacy, binding you to a life of submission. When fear strikes, guilt follows swiftly behind, like a shadow that only grows darker the more you try to outrun it. And when guilt creeps into your heart, fear is there to amplify it, to twist it into something monstrous, something that paralyzes. They are the thieves who steal your strength, your confidence, your right to exist as you are. Together, they make you doubt your very soul. But who benefits from this? Who profits from a man so bound by fear and guilt that he can never truly live? The world does not need your fear, it needs your action. The world does not need your guilt, it needs your creation. And yet, these two bandits steal both from you, chaining you to an existence of regret and terror. They need each other, like darkness needs the night, but you are their prey. It is time to separate them, to rip apart the bond they share and see them for what they truly are, not protectors, not guides, but thieves, parasites that feed on your energy. Fear and guilt need each other to thrive, but they are weak alone. When you begin to see them as the enemies they are, they lose their power over you. How then do you divide them? You start by seeing them for what they are, not your truth, but lies woven together to keep you small. When fear knocks, you face it head-on, not with trembling hands, not with submission, but with the boldness of someone who refuses to be manipulated. You do not run from fear. You stand in its face and force it to reveal itself for the coward it is. And when guilt rises, you do not feed it with your shame. You do not allow it to define you. You let it be a lesson, not a prison. You see the mistakes, the failures, and you turn them into the building blocks of a man who has learned, a man who has grown. Fear and guilt, twin bandits, yes. But you are the one who holds the knife. You are the one who can carve them out of your life. Separate them, conquer them, and reclaim what is yours. What will people say? The illusion of others' judgment. How many times have you hesitated, paralyzed by the imaginary voices of a crowd that does not exist? How many decisions have you delayed, too afraid of the phantom accusations that haunt your every move, of the invisible eyes that seem to scrutinize your every breath? The judgment of others, this great specter that lurks just behind every action, every word, every choice. It is not real. It is a lie. Yet you live as though it is the only truth that matters. This is the great illusion, the belief that others hold the power to define you, to decide your worth, to shape your destiny with their whispers and glances. These others are nothing more than shadows, figments of your mind, constructs born of your own fear, insecurities, and desire for approval. You have created these judges, placed them on thrones they never earned, and allowed them to dictate the terms of your life. The truth is this: you are the only one who can judge you. No one has the authority to weigh your soul except you. No one has the right to decide whether you are worthy, capable, or deserving of happiness. And yet, you place the chains of their approval around your neck and wear them as if they were a crown. What will people say? This question is not just about the opinions of others. It is a reflection of your own inner submission. It is a sign that you are still bound to the false gods of social acceptance, living a life dictated by rules that were never yours. Why do you care so deeply about the echoes of a crowd that has no true power over your existence? Why do you allow the shadows of imagined critics to rob you of your own power? To free yourself from this, you must do the unthinkable. You must strip away the facade of external judgment and confront the truth that no one has the right to tell you how to live. The judgment of others is a phantom, a figment of your mind that thrives only because you feed it. When you stop fearing the opinions of those who do not understand your path, when you stop allowing their words to dictate your actions, you will see the truth for what it is. They are powerless. Their judgment means nothing because their view of you is not the truth. In the end, what will people say? The answer is simple: nothing. Because their voices will fade into silence the moment you begin to live for yourself. The moment you start making decisions not based on their approval, but on your own truth. Only when you break free from the illusion of external judgment will you discover the freedom to live fully and boldly, unshackled by the phantoms you once allowed to control you. Guilt for others' emotions, not your burden. How many times have you found yourself carrying the weight of someone else's misery? How often have you twisted yourself into knots, reshaping your actions, your thoughts, your very being to fix the storm that rages inside another? You see their pain, their frustration, their anger, and you believe it is your responsibility to smooth the waves, to silence the thunder. But let me tell you this: their emotional storms are not your storms to calm. You are not born to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, nor are you here to shoulder the emotional burden of others. Yet, time and time again, you sacrifice your own peace, your own tranquility, in a futile attempt to correct what is not yours to correct. You take on the role of healer, protector, nurturer, as though the very essence of your being is to serve the whims of others' emotions. And in doing so, you diminish yourself, draining your energy, eroding your power, as you live not for your own truth, but to please, to fix, to repair. But what if their emotions are not your problem? What if, just perhaps, their feelings are the result of their own inner landscape, their own choices, their own reactions? Why must you bear the weight of their responses as if they were your own? Why should you bend and break yourself to alleviate someone else's discomfort? The guilt you feel when someone is upset is not your burden to bear. It is a false guilt, a creation of your own mind, a lie designed to keep you in the service of others. When you absorb their pain, you deny them their own autonomy, their own process of growth, their own responsibility for their emotional world. By carrying their pain, you rob them of the opportunity to face themselves, to deal with their own feelings, to learn from their own discomfort. You place yourself in the position of a savior, but there is no glory in a role that diminishes your own power. Understand this: you are not responsible for how others feel. You are not a puppet to be pulled by their strings. You do not exist to balance the emotional scales of the people around you. To live with this weight is to live in bondage to others' emotional states, a bondage that will strangle your own growth. The only way to break free from this is to draw a clear boundary between what is theirs and what is yours. Their anger, their sadness, their joy, it is theirs, not yours. Their emotional world is their domain, just as yours is yours. And in letting go of the false belief that you must carry it, you free yourself. Stop apologizing for others' emotions. Stop reshaping your life to fit their needs. You are not a therapist. You are not a fixer. You are not responsible for their happiness or their sorrow. You are only responsible for yourself. The moment you release this false burden, you reclaim your power, your peace, and your right to live for your own truth, not for the fluctuating moods of those around you. Let them own their feelings. You own your life. To forgive does not mean to forget. Forgiveness, a word that is spoken often, yet understood so little. You are told that forgiveness is the key to freedom, that it is the way forward, the path to healing. And yet, in the quiet corners of your soul, you feel a resistance. Something stirs deep within, a truth that refuses to be silenced. Forgiveness does not erase the past. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting. The act of forgiveness is not the act of erasing your scars, of pretending that the wounds never existed. It is not a sweeping motion of the hand that clears the slate, nor is it an illusion of purity, where the wrongs done to you simply vanish into the ether. Forgiveness is not a denial of your pain. No, it is the power to rise above it. The strength to carry the lessons it has taught you, without allowing them to dominate your every breath, every decision, every move. To forgive is to refuse to let the past be your master. It is to acknowledge that the past has shaped you, but does not define you. The events that caused you pain, the betrayals, the moments of loss, they are not to be forgotten. They are to be integrated, understood, and transcended. You do not deny their existence. You transform them. You take the lessons they offered and you forge them into the very fabric of your being. You become stronger, wiser, more resilient, because you chose not to be a victim of your history. To forgive is to release the grip that the past holds on you. But this is not the same as forgetting. Forgetting is the abdication of responsibility. Forgetting is to pretend that nothing has changed, that no lessons have been learned, that you have not been molded by the fire. Forgetting is cowardice. But forgiveness, true forgiveness, is an act of profound strength. It is the ability to look into the face of your past, to acknowledge its pain, and then to choose not to carry it as a weight around your neck. When you forgive, you do not erase the wound. You transform it into a mark of power, a symbol of your ability to overcome. You do not erase the lesson. You let it empower you to move forward. It is the triumph of the human spirit, not to forget, not to deny, but to transcend. You are not bound by your past. You are shaped by it, yes, but you are not enslaved by it. You carry its lessons, but you do not allow them to control your present or your future. So forgive, not to forget, but to release. Forgive to stop carrying the chains of the past. Forgive to free yourself from the prison of victimhood. Forgive to step forward, not as someone who has forgotten the past, but as someone who has mastered it. Take care of yourself without guilt, breaking the myth that self-love is selfish. In the shadows of your mind, there lies a quiet, insidious whisper, a voice that tells you that caring for yourself is a sin. It echoes from every corner of society, from the teachings of the past, from the weight of 1,000 expectations. To love yourself is to be selfish, they say. To prioritize your needs is to ignore others. How many times have you heard this lie? How many times has it been repeated until it became part of the very marrow of your bones? But I tell you, this is not the truth. This is the great myth. The very foundation of your existence has been built on the lie that self-care, that self-love, is something shameful. You have been made to believe that to tend to your own needs is to ignore the needs of others, that to give yourself the attention and care you deserve is an act of egoism, something unworthy. But let me ask you this. How can you give to others what you do not first give to yourself? How can you pour from an empty cup? You see, this myth that self-love is selfish, this narrative that places the needs of others above your own, is not only false, it is destructive. It diminishes you, weakens you, and slowly chips away at the very foundation of your power. It teaches you that you are not enough, that your worth is defined by how much you can sacrifice, how much you can give, without regard for your own vitality. But there is a profound truth that you must understand. To care for yourself is the highest form of strength, not weakness. It is not selfishness to nourish your own soul, to fortify your body, to cultivate your mind. It is the act of a warrior, a sovereign of the self, who understands that only by tending to their own well-being can they truly give to the world. It is through self-love that you can become your truest, most powerful version. When you love yourself, when you honor your own needs and desires, you are not closing off the world. On the contrary, you become a beacon of strength, a force that radiates outward, drawing others to you, inspiring others to embrace their own worth. You become a creator, not a martyr. You become a leader, not a follower. The myth that self-love is selfish is rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of what it means to be human. It arises from the fallacy that the needs of others must always come before your own, that sacrifice is noble, that self-denial is virtuous. This is the old way of thinking, a way that keeps you small, keeps you weak, keeps you in a state of perpetual servitude to others. To love yourself is not an act of egoism, it is an act of power. When you love yourself, you stop apologizing for your existence. You stop diminishing your worth in the face of others. You stand tall, unwavering, as someone who knows that your needs are just as important as anyone else's. So, Break free from the lie. Tear down the myth that tells you that caring for yourself is wrong, that self-love is a flaw. You are not an object to be sacrificed on the altar of others' expectations. You are a living, breathing force, capable of greatness, if you choose to nourish it. Self-care is not a luxury, it is a necessity. It is the foundation of a life well lived. And when you finally embrace this truth, when you stop apologizing for loving yourself, you will become the most powerful, the most radiant version of yourself. And in that power, you will give more than you ever thought possible, not out of obligation, but out of the abundance of a soul that has learned to love itself. Realize you do not have eternity. Is it worth wasting precious time on self-punishment? The sands of time slip through your fingers, minute by minute, second by second, unyielding and relentless. And yet, here you stand, caught in the prison of your own mind, shackled by guilt, regret, and endless self-recrimination. How many hours, how many days, how many precious moments have you sacrificed to the hollow pursuit of self-punishment? How often do you hold yourself hostage to the mistakes of the past, tormenting your spirit with what cannot be undone, with what was already set in motion and has long passed? This is the cruelest of all illusions, the belief that your suffering will somehow undo the past, that the deeper you bury yourself in self-blame, the more you can atone for your transgressions. But I tell you now, in the deepest, most piercing truth, this is an empty, self-destructive game. You do not have eternity. Your time here is finite, and every moment wasted in the shackles of guilt is a moment stolen from the life you could be living. To punish yourself for the mistakes you've made is to deny yourself the chance to live at all. It is to hold yourself in chains when you could be walking free, creating, evolving, thriving. Your life is slipping away, yet you sit in the dark, flogging yourself for a past that is gone. Does this serve you? Does this help you rise above the ashes of your past? Or does it simply keep you mired in the dirt, unable to move forward? Imagine for a moment that you understood, truly understood, that time is the most precious thing you have. That every passing second is an opportunity, not for regret or self-pity, but for transformation, for creation, for growth. What would happen if you stopped punishing yourself? What would happen if you took that energy that you waste in the dark corners of guilt, and channeled it into something productive, something alive? Would you not become a force, an unstoppable wave of creation, a being unburdened by the weight of your past? You are not the sum of your mistakes, nor are you the embodiment of your worst decisions. You are not a walking collection of regrets. You are what you choose to become, and you are only capable of becoming that which you allow yourself to be. Every moment you spend in self-loathing is a moment you are not becoming. Every second you waste in self-punishment is a second stolen from the potential of your greatness. You are not here to suffer endlessly for your past. You are here to create, to evolve, to transcend. And the first step in that journey is realizing that your time is far too precious to spend it on self-inflicted pain. You do not have eternity. Your days are numbered, and the world is full of opportunities waiting for you to seize them. Every moment you live in regret is a moment you are not living in power, in freedom, in joy. Do you understand the gravity of this? Do you understand that each second you waste in self-punishment is a second you will never get back? Time is your most valuable asset, and once it is gone forever. The question is, will you spend it chasing shadows, tormenting yourself over what you cannot change, or will you rise up, break the chains, and use every moment to craft the life you desire, to shape the future you deserve? The choice is yours. But remember this, you do not have eternity. Find your voice, louder than guilt. The practice of discovering your inner authority. In the depths of your soul, a voice trembles. It is not the voice of others, nor the voice of your upbringing, nor the voice of societal demands. It is your own. It has always been there, waiting, silent perhaps, but present, waiting for you to hear it, to heed it, to become it. The question is, will you choose to listen to it, or will you allow the cacophony of guilt, shame, and the judgments of others to drown it out? For far too long, you have been led to believe that your worth is determined by the voices around you. Your family, your culture, your religion, your peers. All these voices have carved their influence upon you. But in the process, you've lost your own. These external voices have shouted louder, demanding that you conform, that you kneel to their judgments. that you sacrifice yourself for their expectations. The result? You have become a ghost of yourself. You have surrendered your inner authority, and in its place, guilt has made its home. But listen closely now, for there is a truth that has been buried beneath layers of noise. Your voice is more powerful than the weight of any guilt you carry. It is louder than the cries of your past mistakes, stronger than the opinions that others have crafted for you. It is the voice that speaks from your core, from your deepest self, the voice that is your own, unwavering, unapologetic, and full of untapped power. To find this voice is no simple task. It requires courage, the courage to challenge everything you've been taught, to push back against the forces that have sought to silence you. It requires the courage to stop listening to the distorted echoes of guilt and instead attune yourself to the clear, bold resonance of your own inner truth. It requires the courage to claim your authority, to recognize that no one else has the right to define you, to shape your path, or to decide your worth. Finding your voice means embracing your inner sovereignty. It means standing tall in the face of all that has sought to diminish you and saying, "No more. I will not be defined by my past. I will not be controlled by guilt. I will speak my truth, and I will create my own destiny." This is the voice of your inner authority, the voice that will guide you through the labyrinth of self-doubt, the voice that will free you from the shackles of self-recrimination. It is only when you find this voice, when you choose to speak with it, from it, and through it, that you can transcend the grip of guilt. Guilt has no power over the one who stands firm in their own truth, who answers to no one but themselves. It has no place in the heart of the sovereign. The journey to finding your voice is the journey to freedom. It is the journey to reclaiming the life that is rightfully yours, to stepping out of the shadow of guilt and into the radiant light of your own power. The louder your voice becomes, the quieter guilt becomes, for it cannot withstand the strength of a soul that knows its own worth. You are the authority in your life, no one else. And when you find your voice, when you let it rise above the din of guilt, you will walk forward with the strength of a conqueror, knowing that your truth is your own, and no one can take it from you. As you stand at the edge of this journey, remember, you are not defined by your mistakes. You are defined by the power you reclaim, the authority you embrace, and the voice you choose to listen to. Free yourself from the chains of guilt and step boldly into the life you deserve. The time is now. May you find your inner strength, speak your truth, and walk the path of freedom. Thank you for being here, and may your journey be one of liberation and self-discovery.